Welcome to another episode of the Principal Liner Notes podcast. This is Sean Gaylord, and I am so grateful that I have a friend and bandmate and a guest here on the podcast. You may have seen me post a little bit about this leading up to the dropping of the episode. And it is Stacey Ross Cohen, and she is one of the co-authors of this book, Brand Up, which I highly recommend. And we're going to take a deep dive in. Stacey, welcome. I'm gonna share a little bit about your bio here, which is so fascinating.
And thank you, Sean. I'm so thrilled to be on the show. I'm very excited. Thank you for the invite.
It has been a long and winding road. There's a whole backstory
Yes, there is.
to getting you here, and I'm grateful. And again, we got to give quick kudos to Lainey Rowell for
Yes,
connecting us.
absolutely. Who I just had the pleasure of speaking with yesterday.
Oh man, she is a treat. I know Lainey is a connector and a networker and a mutual friend. So any friend of Lainey's is a friend for life. And I put you in that category.
And I feel the same.
Oh, thank you, my friend. We have a lot of common ground here. Uh,
Yes.
and for those who are listening, let me just share with you a little bit about Stacey so that you too may find some common ground. And I know you will after you hear Stacey's story, learn more about her book, Brand Up. But anyway, here is her official bio. An award-winning brand professional who earned her stripes on Madison Avenue and at major television networks before launching her own agency, Stacey specializes in everything branding. She is the CEO and founder of Co-Communications, a public relations, marketing, and design agency headquartered in New York. Since 1998, Stacey has coached individuals and businesses across various industries, from real estate and healthcare to education and professional services, and expertly positions their narratives in fiercely competitive markets. A staple at industry conferences, Stacey recently made her debut on the TEDx stage. I can't wait to see that. She is the contributor at the Huffington Post and Entrepreneur and has been featured in Forbes, Crain's Entrepreneur, and a suite of other national media. She holds a BS from Syracuse University, an MBA from Fordham University, and a certificate in media technology and entertainment from NYU Leonard School of Business. Stacey is an entrepreneur at heart. She started her first business when she was just 14 years old and is now a member of a prominent angel investor group. Stacey's book, Brand Up, the ultimate playbook for college and career success, is published by Post Hill Press, Simon & Schuster, is a game changer for teens to stand out in our increasingly connected, cluttered, and competitive world. Stacey Ross Cohen, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. And what an introduction. So glad to be here with you.
We have got to get into it, and we're gonna, and for folks that are either tuning in or whether it's through YouTube or whether you're listening on the audio podcast platform of your choice, there are going to be plenty of rewindable moments, because in our pre-conference conversation, Stacey just dropped a lot of truth bombs, and we both realized, man, we better press record on this and get going, right?
Yes.
So what is the backstory on Brand Up, Stacey?
So Brand Up, there's been a lot of iterations as we spoke about, but when my daughter, who's now in her 20s, was in high school, very, very, very underscored competitive high school district, where a lot of the kids have GPAs of 4.2, I had an epiphany. And I said, you really need to stand out and market yourself. So fast forward, I started writing for Huffington Post, and there were a lot of different, research and incidents that happened around that time. One was that there were all these statistics that said college admission officers are now looking at teen social media. The
Yes.
second was, and I don't know, are you familiar with Harvard 10?
Yes.
Okay, so Harvard 10, these brilliant 10 kids, they're accepted into Harvard with a 3.2 acceptance rate. And boom, because of bad social media, their acceptance was revoked.
Yes.
And do you hear that background noise, John?
I do. It's is it music or a little ambiance?
It's a leaf blower. What should we do?
Oh, keep going, keep
Just
going. It's
keep
fine.
going.
It's
Okay.
it's not that intrusive. It's
Sorry
all
about
right.
that. I have a very loud voice, so I can definitely talk over it.
Absolutely.
So in any case, again, the Harvard example shows us that smart kids aren't always smart on social media. So what I think it was my second post for Huffington, and I was curious, are there any high schools that are teaching digital leadership, personal branding, and how to leverage social media to your advantage? And I found one in North Broward, Florida, a private school. And what was fascinating is that they made the class mandatory for 14-year-olds.
Wow.
So I blogged about it, and then the article came out. The instructor and creator of the curriculum got in touch with me, and we became fast friends, as did another co-author. So Jason Schaefer, the teacher, and my other co-author, Alan Katzman, we all became fast friends as a result of this Huffington Post article. On a visit to Florida, I was visiting a friend. Jason said, I know you're coming on vacation, but would you sit in my classroom? Of course, Jason. And so go sit in his classroom, and I was blown away. Come back to New York, write another Huffington Post article about my visit in the classroom, and it went viral. I mean, if I tell you, Sean, these kids were able to tell their narratives and their superpower at such a young age. It was life-changing. And then after that article went viral, I knew that I had something, and that led me on the path to the book.
It's interesting as you share that, and I'm just having a little bit of flashback to my own, college admissions days, in the years of 1980, 87, 88. And I remember, like, the biggest thing was the monolithic college admissions essay. And that was like the thing. And there were books and classes and tips, and it's still a big deal. But here in this case, you're really talking about really the emergence of social media, which isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And we have kids. I mean, I'm an elementary school principal. I've been a middle and high school principal, but there are kids as young as first and second grade that are on social media in whatever way, be it gaming or YouTube, or have their own YouTube channel. But this notion of personal branding, and you touched upon it. So why is it important for teens? Why is why can't we just focus on the essay, or focus on making sure I'm in the key club and I have an athletics and those things? What's why, again, are we wanting our students to think like Don Draper and Mad Men, or or something like that, right?
I love that. I don't know that we want them to think like Don Draper, but
Probably not. Yeah.
yeah, probably not. But it is all about standing out. And how do you get to the top of a decision maker's list? So one of the biggest milestones in a teen's life is college, but this is something that will carry them to their first job. And to that notion, again, when we look at statistics, 75% of admission officers and job recruiters are looking at kids' social media. I know that is alarming. So they're monitoring social media. So what teens post online, it matters. It absolutely matters. And I always say to kids, Google is the new resume. So you've got to put your best digital foot forward. I don't know if you've ever heard the statistic, but in an internet minute, there are 6 million Google searches. So someone is probably Googling you, Googling me, Googling your listeners, and yes, Googling our teens. So we've got to give them the best opportunity. We need to look at the end of the day, the kids that pay attention to their online presence early, they're going to have a greater chance for admissions to nab that scholarship for a job interview. And so again, I believe in building that muscle early. And and again, I'm not saying take the social out of social media, but you need to be intentional. You need to be deliberate. You need to be cautious. I think, part of it is I also want to, at the same point, level the playing field for teens, because this book is not just for teens that want to get into Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
There's a pathway for everyone, right? There's a pathway for everyone. So this book is also for kids that maybe they want to go into carpentry or hairdressing, or there's even a chapter on entrepreneurship. Maybe during the pandemic, they created an Etsy store that is flying high, and they want to take a gap year or two between
Mhm.
high school and college to see how their business goes. So again, my hope is that kids will um, kids will use social media to their advantage. I think that there are a lot of progressive high schools out there, but I still see a lot of high school guidance counselors that tell kids to stay off of social media. And I
Mhm.
say, no, I said, you just have to learn how to use it effectively to increase your chances to achieve success, and however you define success.
So, there are a lot of kids out there, that look to those social media influencers. And there are good influencers and bad influencers. And it's a big deal for kids. They develop a relationship with these influencers. They develop an identity. They feel a sense of belonging. And sometimes things, in my opinion, get lost in the translation, and a child loses a sense of their self, or they may maybe follow a negative influencer, or
Yes,
what
yes,
have you.
yes, yes.
So what is it that educators and principals like me can do to maybe model and empower kids to brand up?
Great question. And as we spoke before, I mean, my dream is that this becomes part of the curriculum of every high school. It's really, really important. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've read the report, but the Surgeon General just came out with the Surgeon General just came out with a report a couple of weeks ago, how social media poses a harm for kids' mental health.
Yeah.
And and what I find so interesting, so your kids are a little younger, mine are in their 20s, and they'll say to me, we feel so lucky that we did not grow up now, with social media as it is.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, and I think we don't have, I think what schools are lacking is there's really no precedent, right? It's like, because all of this is so new, and I think a lot of the guidance counselors, they just don't know what they don't know. And so when you're looking at the use of social media, and even like, let's put college aside, but
Mhm.
how can you use social media for the good, and how can you show your leadership skills and your sense of community through social media. I also think it's a good exercise. Like, there's an exercise in the book about, for kids to be reflective on how they're using social media, and how could they change that so that it's to their advantage. I think kids also have to understand that on social media, it's like, it's not just kids, it's adults too, but it can bring out the worst in people. And so I think it's really important for us to keep that mental health in check. And I'm sure you've heard this as an educator about, like, the high rate of suicide in our teens. And when you go back and look at some of the reasoning behind of it, some of it is, you could create a direct link back to social media and somehow being bullied or
Yes.
exploited. And it's so sad to me. It's like, we got to get these kids early and understand, and creating a self-awareness, and getting them to be confident despite some of the negatives of social media.
Absolutely. And to follow up on that, what are those cautionary tales? What are those things that you would say, please don't do this, or this is, this is a misguided post, or be careful.
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I always tell kids they have to put everything through the pure test. And pure test, and
Yes.
I made that up myself. So pure test is positive. It's unbiased. It's respectful. It's ethical, and so it's like, you've really got to, and we've all heard this, you've got to pause before you post, but you have to think about your audience and the receiving end. It's like, how are they going to receive this post? And in this society, as and kids are so fast with, like, they'll just, like, automatically post without thinking, but step back, and that, of course, is key. But I also believe that it's, you need to build a foundation before you even put content out there, right? And so I always call it personal branding in 3D, because it really is dimensional. So the first is discovery, the second is development, and the third is delivery. So the first part of it is for kids to become self-aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
And personal branding, a lot of people don't like that word, and I struggled, like, should I even use the word brand in this book? Uh, Despite our Mad Men friend, right?
Yeah.
But it was like, at the end of the day, personal branding is not about me. It's nothing that's narcissistic. It's like, what is your value to others?
Mm.
What are you going to bring a
Yeah.
college campus? What are you going to bring to an internship? And so it's kind of like turning it around, being self-reflective, figuring out your superpower, but only then should you be using social media, developing your online profiles. And ultimately, we are all our own news channel. And so then we're taking that learning and pushing it through. But getting back to your original question, because I know that I went on a
Oh,
tangent.
I love it. I love this. This is great. You're doing great, Stacey.
It's again, I go back to the Harvard 10,
Mhm.
where 10 kids, Harvard's acceptance rate now is at 3.2%.
Mm.
And so back in 2017, these 10 kids applied to Harvard, they got accepted, they formed a side social media Facebook group. bad social media behavior. Just everything from bullying to racist remarks and everything in between. It got the eyes of administration, and all 10 kids, their admission were revoked. So that tells us it's like even these really smart kids aren't smart in social media. And I question, like, had they had a class on, and I don't know what you want to call it, social media literacy, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we all think like our kids are better than us on social media to a degree, but their critical thinking has not caught up yet. So again, catch them early, and for them also to understand the consequences of bad behavior.
Agreed. And I also think too, it requires a little bit of it, maybe on an educator's part or a parent's part or a mentor's part to almost go meta with kids. So I can almost see me as a principal or an educator, if I'm at an event or if with kids or with teachers to kind of to maybe not necessarily be Don Draper in terms of lifestyle, but to be Don Draper from Mad Men in terms of, or Stacey Cohen in terms of, all right, let's think about what story we're telling here as we take this picture. What is it we want to share? What is the message that we want to convey? What is it that we want people to walk away from
Yes.
as they receive this message, whatever it is, because we have something important to share. You are valuable. I mean, I think you almost have
Yes,
to do
yes,
this kind of
exactly,
meta
exactly.
dialogue or engage with kids. Hey, I just see a lot of teachable moments there. Like, well,
Oh,
what do you want to
there's a
share?
lot of teachable moments. And if
Yeah,
you also consider that the college admissions game has changed so much and COVID has really accelerated it. One way that is, well, we all know that there's a lot of test optional schools now. And
yeah,
while it's true, GPAs and SAT, ACTs will always be a predominant factor. Schools, and I've spoken to hundreds of college admission officers, educational consultants, to know that they're looking for good character. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for innovation. They're looking for collaboration, but they're also looking for a kid that will stand out. So if you have, consider it in a college admission officer, maybe, and I think the average time they look at an application is 10 minutes. So let's say student A, student B, similar ACT scores, similar GPA. How are you going to choose? It's probably the kid that started a tutoring business during COVID that's going to stand out to the admission officer, because again, that portrays like leadership skills, innovation, a growth mindset, like all of these great skills. So I think it's like kids. There was one educational consultant, um, and he said something brilliant, and it so resonates with me. And he said, I just don't want to mess up exactly what he said.
sure.
So this is all about, we want to distinguish ourselves, and we want our kids to distinguish themselves in meaningful ways. And so he said, be one of 10. Don't be in a pack of 9. And that's a lot of what this book is about, because it's like these days more than ever, you've got to stand out. You've got to be a master of first impressions. And social media, or just doing something that's different, maybe creating your own website, or even the email signature line on when you're sending an email to admissions officer, have something fun, maybe create a tagline for yourself. Those are the type of things that will make you memorable.
And the other thing too, the principal side of this too is, when a student puts out their story, that admissions office also is going to look at the school from which the student is enrolled.
Yes.
And you just dropped there's a there that you everybody needs to just go back and rewind everything Stacey is saying, because it hit me. And this is something that I'm very fixated upon, I guess, is as a principal, as a school leader, I have a moral imperative. I have a responsibility to society and the community I serve, that I am helping to prepare our students for a future that does not yet exist, or at least get them in the direction of that future, right? And you dropped, some pretty important skills that employers are looking for: innovative, creative, problem solvers, collaborative, standing out, having your own individual identity. And I, as being a part of that school, have a responsibility to make sure that the schoolhouse is connecting the dots to those things in the curriculum, in the culture, in
Yes.
in 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 those things. A lot of this branding up too is on children, is on students, and preparing them. But also, I think it's important as well that especially for the school leaders and teachers and educators and superintendents that are tuning into this, we own a little bit of this as well.
Yeah, because it's really preparing kids for life. And beyond the personal branding and taking kids through a journey of like becoming more self-aware, reflecting on their value, and then also how to use social media to get an edge. There's also chapters on networking. I have a chapter dedicated to LinkedIn. As I shared with you, I tell every kid they must be on LinkedIn by the age of 16. And
Hmm.
I tell parents, when you hand over the car keys to your kid, they need to be on LinkedIn. It's really important. It is the professional network. We see college admissions officers looking at applicants' LinkedIn, because you can see that on LinkedIn. You can't see that on other social platforms. And so, again, and kids take it a step further. Kids also need to be connecting with professors, alumni, admissions
Mhm.
officers on LinkedIn. And so, for example, like if a kid wants to go to Vanderbilt for engineering, they should be linking in with the chair of the engineering department and other professors. They should be following them, engaging them, and building a relationship. And so a lot of the book is also about building relationships. I have a whole section on interviewing. I think, and you as the principal, one of the best courses I took in college was interviewing. So it was developing these interviewing skills, and then it was recorded, and we would look back at the recording and assess our performance. And I think that would be, that within itself could be a class. I have a chapter in the book on networking. So I always tell, and I bet you tell this to your girls as well. I've always told my girls, you're both two very bright girls. I said, but in this life, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes. That,
And so at first they were like, no, mom, we don't need any of your introductions. We can do it ourselves. But now that they're getting into their 20s, they see life as it really is.
Absolutely. I've learned a similar lesson from my father, and shared that with my three Gaylord girls. And speaking of daughters and family, before we pressed record on the podcast, we have a lot of common ground, you and I. And one of the pieces of common ground that we both share is we're both in the twin community. I'm the father of twin daughters, and you yourself are a twin. And I would love to kind of hear how you being in this very unique and beautiful relationship inspired your work in advertising and marketing, and was one of the catalysts for the Brand Up journey.
What a great question. So when I was growing up in Brooklyn,
Right.
uh, I have an older sister, and my twin sister and I, who, by the way, always shared bedrooms and had twin
Mhm.
beds. It's like from as far as I can remember, like even like being 3 or 4 years old, just a lot of like comparisons, sometimes insensitive remarks like, why do you weigh more than your sister? And how come your sister gets better grades? And and so always having these questions. And also for birthday parties, right? We shared the same birthday,
Mhm.
always getting the same gift.
Mm.
Sometimes because, and understandably so, because people that were gifting, they did not want to make us jealous over the others. Sometimes they were in different colors, but we could even fight about that. And then and I had shared this with you, one aunt growing up that she never knew our names, Stacey and Shari. It was always the twins. So I struggled so. It was so important for me from an early age to have my own identity and to figure out what is my space to excel in. So Shari, during high school at least, excelled in academics, where I was the more social twin. So
Mhm.
it's like I think it was really important for us to have our own thing and like our superpower, right?
Mhm.
And what's really interesting is that I would say the biggest compliment anyone could give me is, Stacey, you are so unique.
Mm.
Think about it, right? Because it was like just always throughout our life being compared. Like
Right.
even now I have to say we're still sometimes compared. So that led me to the journey of, if I could figure out my own identity and my value to the world, everyone else could as well. And I had shared with you that my TEDx talk I did a couple of years ago was about getting an early start on personal branding and digital leadership, but I wove in my whole story of being a twin, because I do think that is, I feel like this is my purpose in life, helping others figure out, I don't know, Simon Sinek calls it your why, or,
Yeah.
but just figuring out, okay, what is your value? And then learning how, and then teaching kids how to package that, and then also to disseminate it into the world.
Mm. Well stated. Now that Brand Up is on the shelf and available, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, what do you have any follow-up books? You mentioned like how even before Brand Up came to be, like there was an earlier version of the book or a different version. So what any follow-ups or sequels or companion pieces coming your way?
Absolutely, yes. And there was the first iteration of the book was directed to parents. And who knows, maybe I'll put that out. But the next book, which will be out in 2024, speaking to the publisher, because there's just been such a high interest in this, it
Yeah.
will be to college kids' early career.
Wow.
And I just finished the audiobook. So I recorded the audiobook for this, which I found really interesting. This book is very interactive, a lot of exercises. I didn't see it as an audiobook, but there was interest in it. And then I'm also developing online curriculum, which will be ready probably late fall.
That's so exciting, and I applaud you for doing the audiobook because I I'm very tangential. I riff, I improvise, and for my own book, I can only see me reading it going, wait a minute, let me rethink this, or here's another thought, or I have another idea,
Yes.
and then I'm sure I would have driven everybody in the studio crazy. But that's hats off to you on those upcoming projects. That's really great.
Yeah, so excited. And the other aspect is that throughout my life, and career, like I've always mentored women who are starting businesses, but my heart is also with youth. And one of our longest term clients in the agency for actually 18 years, Boys and Girls Club. So I'm donating hundreds, probably thousands of books to Boys and Girls Clubs, the Y, and also Girls Inc. So again, I want to get this book out far and wide, but again, to help the kids that they can't get the SAT prep, and they need how, and I don't want to just give them the book, right? Because I want to teach them to learn to fish.
Yeah, that's so powerful and inspiring. How can folks follow you? How can folks connect with you besides picking up a copy of Brand Up? I know that you have a great social media presence, and I'm very grateful to follow and connect with you through those platforms. So how can folks connect with you and engage in conversation with you?
Oh, and I so appreciate that. Definitely through Instagram at Stacey Ross. And on a weekly basis, we give like what I call brandamentals. They're at the end of each chapter of the book. So I think that's content of value. And also I do have a website called brandupbook.com.
Wonderful. And I will include all of those links that you shared, and also a link to ordering the book in the show notes as well, for those of you that are tuning into the podcast. I'm going to make a reference here, and I would be remiss if I did not make this reference in conclusion, Stacey, but that's the way of the world, as Earth, Wind, and Fire sing
Oh,
of
I
Stacey Ross
love
Cohen. I'm
it.
just saying that's,
I love it.
yeah,
That's fantastic, Sean. I love it. I totally forgot you had asked me like one of my favorite music groups of all time. I was tossed between them and Coldplay, but
Ooh,
maybe Coldplay could have some interesting. Like actually, if it was Coldplay, I would use the song "Fix It" because that's what I want to do. I feel that there's a void, and I want to fix it.
well, you are definitely fixing it, and you definitely um, emanate the same uplifting and feel good vibe that Earth, Wind, and Fire gives in their music. And I'm very, very grateful that we connected. You have an open invitation to come back to the Principal Liner Notes podcast, and I do hope in the future in one of your projects, and I know you've got a lot going on, but I do hope that there is a Brand Up podcast, because your message and how you frame things is so needed to continue to fix it for kids and schools and ultimately the world.
And thank you for that. And I have to ask you now because I am going to launch, probably won't be until towards the end of this year, but would you be my first guest?
I would be more than honored, Stacey. I am there, time, place. I would be very honored. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you for having me as your guest. It's a true privilege, and I appreciate all that you do. To me, those in education are heroes. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh, you're very welcome, Stacey. You are a gift, and as I sign off, I usually sign off with the phrase, don't forget to share with the world your dreams, your visions, and ideas, because you help make the world a better place, and the world needs you. So all of those things but what you're doing is you are helping others to amplify their voice, and doing it in the service of kids and teens who do need their voices amplified, and the world does need them, and they will make the world a better place. So thank you for being a set of positive dominoes and a positive catalyst for so many kids. Your work is so impactful, and I'm very grateful for you.
Thank you so much, Sean. And I know this is the first of many conversations.
Absolutely. Oh, we're just getting started. So, friends, the book is Brand Up, the ultimate playbook for college and career success in the digital world. The author is the wonderful and the inspiring, and she is the earth, wind, and fire. Brand Up, and
I
that is
love
Stacey,
it.
and that's Stacey Ross Cohen. She's co-authored the book with two wonderful gentlemen, Jason Schaefer and Alan Katzman. The book is Brand Up. Do get it. It's she just gave us a scoop on it. Will be in audio form. You can find this on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. All of the links will be in the show notes. This is the Principal Liner Notes podcast. This is Sean Gaylord with Stacey Ross Cohen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again, Stacey. And I hope to catch all of you on the flip side. And Stacey, you and I, at one point, it's going to be a lobster dinner somewhere, someplace.
Yes, you know it. You know it.
Thanks again.